Welcome to By the Numbers. It's been a while since we've done such a program. The idea, the inception of the show was to share information, regardless of who the person or the individuals that were sitting in front of the camera. The idea was to share information and try to do it as a way to better inform people if they were going to be deciding on a piece of legislation or a measure, town meeting, a project, anything like that. Today our conversation is going to be in regards to the Whitman Middle School project. The idea of our conversation today is more so to provide that information. It is not to find a way to garner support for or against the project. Joining us to talk about the project is Kathleen Ottina. Kathleen is not only the vice chair of the Whitman Finance Committee, but she's also the vice chair of the Whitman Middle School Building Project. Now, she's not here representing either committee. She's here as a private citizen to discuss this project and kind of give the details as they are up to date, knowing that coming up on October 30th, there is going to be a town meeting. The idea is to better arm you, the resident, the citizen, the voter, when you go in, so you can make a good decision that you will know you are better informed with this information. Kathleen, welcome to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me here today.
So just to start out, we can never assume that everybody gets all the information. It's worth noting that Kathleen has, as well as many of those who sit on the Whitman Middle School Building Committee, have devoted many, many hours into finding the best project to put forth to fund for the next several years. There may be individuals out there who are so busy with life and are just hearing about this. There are ways for you to go back. Whitman Hanson Community Access has captured these meetings. You always you can watch these videos. This might be a way to just kind of cull it down to some of the frequently asked questions. I think the first one out of the box would be, why not just simply fix the existing middle school?
Okay, well that's a great question, Kevin, and the answer to it really predates this project. It goes back to when the middle school itself was built, which was back in 1972, when there was no building code for fire safety, for energy efficiency, and for Americans with Disabilities Act's accessibility. It also was the same year that Chapter 766 legislation was passed, which is the special education program. So this building was built prior to building codes and prior to anticipating the space needs of special education children. A quick tour of the building will show you that it's in desperate need of major repairs. The roof leaks leads to mold. The HVAC system doesn't have parts available to fix it. They're 50-year-old systems. And so if we were to repair the building, we would start to, because the building is grandfathered, we don't have to come up to building codes if we don't do anything. But if we start to fix that building, we're going to trigger the building codes, and it's going to cost $60.2 million at most recent estimates. So and we'd just be bringing it up to code. We would not increase the educational opportunities for the children. So the initial studies indicated repairing the building was just not a financially reasonable option to pursue. $60.2 million. It's not worth the investment.
So what's the price tag of the current project as it stands right now? And I believe that there is probably a state number of the Mass School Building Authority would, I believe, provide a percentage, but then Whitman residents would have to pick up the cost of the remainder, correct?
You're correct about that. So the current price, the question that the voters will be asked to vote on at town meeting and on November 4th at the ballot is to fund a $135 million, $289,675 new middle school project. We've worked with the MSBA since 2019 when the original statement of interest was submitted, and it's a long process. That's 4 years now since the process began. And over the period of time when projects were developed and different options were offered, we're at the point right now where the price tag of $135.3 million has been deemed eligible for a $45.6 million state grant. So although it's a big number, that reduces the cost of the taxpayer to $89 million. And that's what the taxpayers will be looking to, we'll be looking to have the taxpayers, myself being a taxpayer, fund over the course of the next 30 years. One of the problems that's made this project so expensive is that despite the MSBA's best efforts to help schools in the 351 districts in the Commonwealth maintain and upgrade their schools, the cost of construction has gone up. And the MSBA has costs associated or funding caps associated with their grant program. And so as a quick example, our current project is estimated to cost $770 per square foot. And right now the MSBA cap per square foot is only $393. So right off the bat, we're $377 per square foot short of being fully funded by the MSBA. Back in 2013, the MSBA was funding something like 87% of the eligible costs, and in 2022, it's down to 60%. So construction costs have increased. The MSBA funding caps haven't kept pace with it, and that's where we are now, getting a significant grant, a third of the cost of the building, but still looking for the taxpayers to help fund the $90 million. That's the balance.
Again, as somebody who has been serving financially, somebody who's been serving as a member of this committee to build this project and taken in a lot of this information and also sat in a lot of these meetings, as the private citizen, talk to me about some of the options that were a way to try to find a way to bring the price tag down, but ultimately this was what was best.
Well, honestly, I've been on the Finance Committee for 5 years, but I really was only appointed to the Middle School Building Committee back in March to serve as the Finance Committee representative to the Building Committee. So I've looked at it as from a financial point of view. The decisions that were made, and I did attend a lot of meetings over the past several years as an interested taxpayer, there were several different aspects of the program that were important, and it's really the educational program because we are providing a school. As I said to one person, we're not building a school to warehouse children, just build a building and put them in there. There's an educational program that we want to meet. And so 2 major decisions were made in the course of this project, and one was to move the 5th grade to the middle school, moving them from the existing 2 elementary schools in Whitman up to the new middle school. And what that does is 2 things. It frees up space in the existing elementary schools, which were also built before 1972 and never had the appropriate special education spaces for the elementary school children. So those freed up spaces will allow the 2 buildings to accommodate the special needs programs and other space needs that the elementary schools have been sort of squeezing into closets or out in the hallways. So it eases the burden on elementary school, and it also provides an educationally sound program for 5th graders, because the thinking is that having children 5 through 8 in one building for 4 years, and I don't know about you and your family, but middle school was a challenging time for my children. Having them there for 4 years allows them to develop the relationships with each other and with the school staff, the teachers, similar to high school, which is usually a 4-year high school, so that at the start of 5th grade you come in not knowing much at all. And by the time you're in 8th grade, you've made friends for life and you're much more mature. So there was an educational component to putting the 5th grade in the middle school as well. And the other controversial aspect of the project was including the auditorium. And the case was made for having equity with the Hanson Middle School, which does have an auditorium. It has a beautiful auditorium. There is no auditorium other than the town hall for community events. This provides a 450-seat auditorium that will be available for the children during the school day, for their performing arts activities, their band, their chorus, their other music activities, but it's also a community space that would, in the long run, be available for something like a town meeting, where if we ever got 450 people to show up, that would be amazing. We'll find out on October 30th if we need an even bigger capacity than 450, but it would provide a community space for all sorts of meetings that we just don't have a place in Whitman right now.
And is it the current middle school? Isn't it like a cafetorium? Isn't it like a split, like where it's a cafeteria, yes, but then they fold up all the tables and chairs and move them, and then it's the auditorium?
Yes, it has a stage, and that's an option. That was an option that was considered, and the committee chose not to pursue the cafetorium. The stage is a 1,600 square foot stage, and then there's seating capacity in the auditorium for 450. If you were to use the existing cafetorium, and I remember going to my oldest grandchild's graduation from preschool, where it was held at the Whitman Middle School, and there were folding chairs, and the children were up on the stage, so it was used, and that's almost 15 years ago that happened. But the space is outdated, and if there's this opportunity for a new building, then the consensus of the building, and I did not vote, I was not on the committee when the vote was made, but the consensus of the 14 people voting, 13 voted to include an auditorium. And this is a 4-year process, so you can question all sorts of decisions that were made along the line. But at that point in time, it was not that much more costly to have an auditorium than not to have an auditorium. And if you were going to build one, the time to build it is when you're building the new school.
So anybody who pays taxes, property taxes, the things you hope your money is spent on is upkeep of municipal buildings. Your roads are paved, you have new sidewalks, things like that. So you want to make sure that your money is being well spent. What is the average taxpayer? What is the additional cost going to cost? What is the as far as the impact when it comes to personal wallets?
That's a great question, Kevin, because the Whitman Middle School Building Committee visited the Senior Center this past Monday, and Mary Holland hosted a jam-packed room of seniors who are my peers. And they were the best audience we've had in all of the community forums, because they listened to our presentation, they read the slides, and then they asked questions. And that's a concern. It's not just for seniors living on fixed incomes. I think there are the whole gamut of residents in Whitman have to wonder, what's this going to cost me? Because there are young families with daycare expenses. They're wondering. People like my own children who have children heading off to college, they have college expenses. So it's not just seniors. It's everyone in this town should be wondering, how much is this going to cost me? So the bottom line is a little more complex than a number. It's based on numbers from the town assessors, based on the average single-family home costs is assessed at $420,530. The decision was made on Tuesday night to put this out to bond as a level principal bond, which means 1/30 of the principal would be paid every year, and so the debt goes down. The other option was level payment, but that was going to be cost prohibitive in the long run. So at a 5.5% rate, and I know this is a long-winded answer to your question, but if your house is $420,530 and the bond is issued at 5.5% for 30 years, your first year payment, the first year that this is bonded, is $1,494, which is a lot of money. The last payment goes down to $595. So each year it goes down. It's not a $1,400, $1,500 tax increase every year. Year 2, it's lower than $1,494. And the average tax bill over the course of the 30 years is $1,017.
And it's worth noting that this is a debt, it's a Prop 2.5 override, but it's a debt exclusion, which means that whatever it's bonded for will come off, it'll come off the books.
Just as the high school is coming off the books as we speak. I believe the high school's final payment is in 2027, which is about the time that this first payment might hit the books. And it's not going to be dollar for dollar by a long shot. I wish it were. But as this debt comes off the books, there will be other projects in town that could be funded by the release of that debt.
Okay. Let's talk about what each vote means. Okay, let's first say on October 30th, you have, now do we know if is it a majority?
Yes.
Is it 2/3?
I asked Justin Evans recently, and Fred Small also did some research, and right now the understanding is that it's going to be a simple majority.
Okay.
But Justin's response to me was the warrant has been sent to town council. The moderator will know well in advance of town meeting. Yes, Mike Seeley. Michael Seeley will know well in advance of what the requirements are for this vote, but right now the understanding is that it's a simple majority.
Okay. So what happens, what does a yes vote mean?
Okay, well, the answer to that is very simple. If you vote yes, then the project proceeds. The town receives a $45.6 million grant. The professionals go on to design the building, come up with the construction documents, goes out to bid, and in fall of 2027, so 4 short years from now, the school will open. And that's the answer to that question.
Okay. Well, now here's the other side of that coin. What if the folks at town meeting vote no?
If the voters at town meeting vote no, we'll still proceed to the ballot question.
Right, which would be the following.
November 4th, which is that Saturday.
Yeah, the following week.
And
that's Saturday.
That's Saturday. At which time the voters can vote no again or vote yes. So what we need for this project to proceed is 2 yes votes. Yes at town meeting and yes at the ballot. If the voters in the town either have no for the first one, no for the second, or no for both, the project, we have 10 days to report back to the MSBA and tell them why it failed and what the plans are going forward. Will we go back for a revote? And the rules and regulations of the MSBA require that we have a vote certification within 120 days of the grant being voted. We expect that will be voted October 25th, so that means by March, the project has to either be funded by the town or the MSBA will withdraw the Whitman Middle School from the capital pipeline, and we go right back to square one, which means that the town will either be fixing the existing middle school for $60.2 million, or we'll have to resubmit a statement of interest all the way back to what was, I think it was April of 2019, the statement of interest was submitted for this project, and we were invited into the capital pipeline by the MSBA on December 22nd, I believe, 2019. So they were accepted immediately. The MSBA came out, their professional staff came out, toured the building, and were amazed that it was still held together, and praised the facilities manager for holding it together with, I think it was Band-Aids and paper clips, that they've done the best they can, but the building just needs more attention than is feasible right now.
So what if there was a different option than what you've already described? Is there something else that could be put into play in the works?
Okay, so thank you for that question, because the answer is there has been a suggestion that a new project could be up and running within a year, and it's totally false. I've done some research just independently looking on the MSBA website and then going to different towns' websites to follow the story. And the only way that a different option can be brought to the town is if we go all the way back to the statement of interests, make that submission, and I found in the 15-year history of the MSBA that only 3 towns have succeeded in having to withdraw from the capital pipeline, but then been accepted back into the pipeline with a second invitation. And the caveat is it's not going to be immediate. Based on the history of the MSBA, the three towns were Carver, Massachusetts, wanted to build a new elementary school. And they received their first invitation in 2007. They tried to get it passed by the town. It was failed. The voters said no. They had to withdraw from the project in 2011. And the second time that they were accepted into the MSBA pipeline was January 29th, 2014. They had a 30-month lag between being withdrawn from the pipeline and being invited in for the second round. So it's not immediate. The other 2 towns, and the project cost. From the initial project, if it were funded in the initial vote, it was $32 million. The project cost $48 million. So there was a significant increase by waiting for the project to be built. And this is all available on the MSBA website and the Town of Carver's website. They have fabulous information available for people to check. The 2 other towns, it's going to be a shortened version of that explanation. Swampscott's first invitation from the MSBA was January 2012. They failed with the vote. They were removed from the capital pipeline in 2015, and the second invitation was extended, and that was January of 2015. The second invitation was extended in December of 2017. That was a 35-month wait. And the worst case, and they still were successful in getting in the second time, but Fitchburg, their initial invitation was November of 2007. They failed to get support from the voters, so they withdrew. They were forced to withdraw from the capital pipeline in 2011. They submitted the second invitation in 2018. That's when they were accepted back into the pipeline. So they submitted the second invitation and they were accepted into the pipeline in 2018. And that's more than 7 years later. And I don't have the costs for those two projects. But the idea that the voters can say no to this project and within a year be back in front of the MSBA waiting to accept funding is just a false narrative. There's no evidence in the history of the 15-year history of the MSBA to lead people to think that that's a reasonable alternative. And I know there was some terrific questions at the Council on Aging, the Monday when we went there, and I know that people were concerned about different aspects of the project. And so my real reason for meeting with you today, Kevin, is to make sure that people have the facts about this project. That if they know that what the no vote means and they vote no, that's fine. If they know what the ramifications of the yes vote means, that's also fine. But please do not vote without knowing the facts, and don't vote based on rumor. The folks at they're my peer group, the folks at the Council on Aging, we vote. We show up and we vote. We do our research.
True.
We know what's going on, and we do live frugally. At this stage in our lives, we do live frugally, but we make decisions based on facts. And so I hope that anyone who watches this conversation listens to the facts and makes a conscious decision to find out more information if they need to, and then vote based on correct information.
It sounds to me as though what you're saying is that if in fact Whitman, it's not successful in passing a town meeting or not successful on November 4th at the ballot, that you're hoping that there isn't because the MSBA monies are so highly sought after by other communities who want to upgrade their school systems with new buildings or refurbish some of their buildings and bring them up to code, that you're basically like playing a lottery, hoping that you're going to get, the odds are against you to be able to be reinserted into it. And then let's not forget, if you're reinserted, well, the costs don't remain the same, that in fact the costs will increase. So it may be $134 million now or somewhere in that ballpark. That could increase by who knows how much more.
Even if it were a scaled down project, if you were eliminated the two options that people are most concerned about, moving from what we're proposing now, the grade 5 through 8 with an auditorium, to a grade 6 through 8 without an auditorium, the funding difference back in January was just $10 million. That option hasn't gone through the full analysis by the MSBA financial people. There's a form called 3011 that is required to be submitted for financing. So there are no real numbers for what would a new project, a scaled back project, cost, other than 4 years from now, if we're back in the pipeline. I don't think it's reasonable to assume it's going to be less expensive than what we're looking at right now for a grade 5 through 8 with an auditorium. There's just the MSBA is funded by the sales tax. They get 1 penny for every 6.25 penny that we pay in sales tax in Massachusetts. And as a taxpayer, I'm happy about that. I like to know where my taxes go, and I know 1 cent of my sales tax now goes to build school buildings in the Commonwealth. So that's reassuring. And I also like to know as a taxpayer where my different taxes go. My local taxes go for local projects. I have a lot of say on that. Where my state taxes go, they sort of evaporate into the ether, and what goes on when I send my check to the IRS, I don't have a clue. Well, I do, and I'm not necessarily happy with the way it's spent, but I have way more control over my local taxes than I do with anything else that's being asked of me. So I think it's great that voters are involved in this decision and that they can make an informed decision and decide this is something I either do or do not support.
It's worth noting that probably throughout the program you've been seeing a website that's been flashing before you. That's www.wmsproject.org. If you want to find out more information, you want to see any of the slides or any of the videos that we have been discussing or referencing, that's the best place to go. I also want to go back to, you had mentioned about if in fact the option was to try to fix the existing building and talking about spending that money. Well, it's not a matter of trying to bringing the building up to code as the codes are back in 1972, but you have to bring it up to the codes as of today's standards, correct?
Absolutely. You'd have to bring them up to today's code. And this is an estimate without ever peeking into the walls to say what happens when we open up the wall.
Right, you never know.
You don't know. And it will not increase. One of the big problems at the existing middle school is that the class sizes, the actual classroom sizes, are too small to accommodate today's education. The new school will have 850 square foot minimum size. It's the minimum size that MSBA will fund, and it's the minimum size that we've asked for. We've asked for 850 square feet. The existing classrooms are significantly smaller than 850 square feet. So you're not going to get a 21st century school. You're going to get a rehabbed 20th century school that meets code. And that's really bottom line. One thing that if people do go on the website to see, anyone who's gone to the soccer fields in the spring or the fall when it's rainy behind the middle school, they know that it's pretty much the children are playing in a marsh. The middle school, the new middle school will both be relocated behind the existing middle school, so in that swampy area where the engineering has been designed to reduce or to address the issue of the water drainage. And new fields, the ones that will be displaced, will be relocated to the side and front of the existing property. So not only will we have a new middle school, we'll also have playing fields that can be used 12 months of the year.
Do we know if it's going to be natural grass or if it's going to be turf fields?
Don't believe it will be turf.
Okay.
I believe it will not be
Just
turf.
worth asking.
I am not positive, but I am pretty sure that MSBA will not fund turf fields for middle school, so we will not be funding turf fields.
Okay. My final question, and that is there anything during this conversation, again, a citizen sharing information with other citizens, a taxpayer sharing information about this project with other taxpayers, anything I haven't asked you that's an essential question to sharing with other citizens?
I'm not sure that it's a question so much, Kevin, as a request of the viewers that if you are a registered voter, a taxpayer in Whitman, this impacts your quality of life. Please get informed about this project. Show up on October 30th. Listen to the presentation. Listen to the answers that are given to any questions, and then vote. And then show up on November 4th and vote, because that's the American way.
And my suggestion is, and again, be better informed as a voter. How you vote is entirely up to you. Again, this is a community project. The idea of this show, again, is just to share information from a private citizen about what's going on. It's also an individual who is part of two committees that are involved financially and with the project itself, who has the knowledge and has done the research and the study. We're not here to, the idea of the conversation is not to sway you to vote for or against. Again, just to better inform you. That's the idea of By the Numbers. Until our next conversation, please have a great day.
So I'm here today to share with you some really good news, an update on the middle school project. I attended a Zoom meeting yesterday with the Massachusetts School Building Authority's Board of Directors, where they made some significant changes to the funding of our project. The first thing they did was they increased the cap on funding the square footage from $393 per square foot to $550 per square foot, which had an immediately positive impact on the grant, because they then voted to award the Whitman Middle School a grant of $59,159,717, which is a $13.6 million increase in state aid to this project. The town's share has now been reduced from the original $89 million down to $76 million, and quick calculations from the town administrator in terms of the impact for the average taxpayer based on a $77 million bonded debt exclusion. The first year impact goes down from $1,494 to $1,281 a year. The last payment goes down to $509 a year at the end of the 30-year bond, and the average goes from $1,017 down to $872 a year. Those are preliminary estimates. I'm sure that they'll be busy at Town Hall today, fine-tuning with the pencils exactly what it translates, but Monday night at town meeting, these numbers will be solid. So I wanted to update you with the good news on the funding of the middle school and appreciate this opportunity to communicate with you. Thank you.